Alright you guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, it is going to be the fabric version of the accordion pouch. So I did the one in vinyl and now we have the fabric version. And the fabric one comes in 3 size hoops. So this tiny one here is the 6x10 hoop. This one here, which I would call more of a standard size, it is the 8x10 hoop. And the one that we have back here, which has been turned into a little purse for a little girl, is the 9x14 hoop, okay? And so it's the same style as the other one where you have the 1 flap, the 2 flap, right? So you can see the size of this one makes a nice little evening purse if you want to turn it into that. It's really a pretty decent size. And this one here, which I would call the standard size, it fits a card really well, okay, inside this part. And you can also fit a card in the front one if you really want it, okay. And then we have the little guy. Now the little guy is kind of similar to the vinyl version where you can just fit the cards back here. So you can see it's there, but unless you change the folding in the front, then it does not fit in the front of the little 6x10. So there we have it. Now also another option is some of the pouches I have done with batting, some of them I have done with this one doesn't have any batting. I don't suggest any batting for the small one because it's hard to turn and I don't feel like it needs it. So we have this one, so that's kind of the shape of that one. Now this one I did with a fusible fleece batting in it. And with this one, is it this one? I left this middle pocket separate like on the vinyl version. So this one is not attached right here, you can see. It's kind of free floating the way it sits, so it's just attached there. And as for the one that we are going to be doing today, that is this version. This is the version that come with the instructions. And as you can see, this part here in the center is attached. So you'd have like a completely separate pocket that is attached here, as well as in the back portion. It's completely separate, doesn't go through. And for this is also an 8x10, so if somebody wanted to see if they could fit, you know, poop bags in there, absolutely you can. Not sure about the other size, probably. Let's check that out. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but you could get it in there if you want it. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and we are going to create this little accordion pouch. And I just want to remind you that if you want to make the D-ring, it goes on the side. This one, I have attached a D-ring on this side and a D-ring on this side, or a ring, to make the little purse. All right, so the design is for the accordion pouch and not for the strap. The strap is an easy thing to make. It's a 12.5 by 3¼ inch piece of fabric sewn into a loop. All right, so here we go. The things that we're going to need today, we need quite a bit of material and fabric for this tiny little pouch. What we need for the inside, for the pocket, is you need 2 pieces. You need one for the back and one for the front. And I line all of my cotton materials with a fusible interfacing. So you can see here what I have, and it's called SF101. That is the one that I'm using. And for the front flap, you're going to need 2 pieces for that as well. You need a lining and a top, and I'm also going to be using a fusible fleece to give the flap a little bit of structure. And for the outside of the pouch, you need the lining and the outside, so you need those 2. And I am also going to be putting a batting on the inside of this one. So this is a bamboo thin bamboo batting is what I have on hand. So that's what we're going to need for the pouch. And then you're going to need some rivets. And what I have here are double cap. That means they have two ends on it that are like a cap. And you do need to get it depending on the thickness of your material. So I have a post length here of about 9, I think it's 9.5 to 10 inches. All right, so you're going to need some of those. And you will need some sort of buttons. And what I have here is called a button snap. Okay, so you've got the two pieces for the back, and then you've got these two. And this one here is actually called a spring version. All right, so you do also need to make sure that the post length for this is the right to go through the material. And I have a longer post here, but I do cut it off with a Dremel if it's too long. So you're going to need some of those. And as always, we are going to start with the lining with the stabilizer. And what I have here is a lightweight tearaway stabilizer I'm using for this. And I am going to run the flap and the inside pocket and also a tab piece for the side, all in my one hoop. But they do come as separate files in the download. All right, so let's get started with the placement stitch. The placement stitches are done, and as I said, I combined this into one hoop. So the next thing that we have to do is for the pocket, which is the inside pocket piece, this rounded part is the top flap area. This is what I consider the bottom. So for this one, we need these long pieces, and you put the one piece on the top here. We got to tape into place. And then we take it back to the machine, and this one is going to run a double line and a side placement stitch, which is going to show the center piece. And then after that, what we're going to do is once that has run and there's a snap placement, we're going to put this one on top. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. There we have it. The inside flap piece is now done. So if you didn't catch that, it was right side facing up, and then this one is right side facing down on top of it. And here we have a turning hole that is left in to turn this piece after. So next one, I am moving on to the flap piece. And for this one, you have the optional ability to add a piece of batting. So what I like to do, and after the placement stitch is done, you put a piece of batting on there with the fusible side. This is a fusible fleece, and you can kind of see that it has these little fusible bumps. And then you put that there, and we will go run the batting tack down, and then we will cut off the excess batting around the tack down. That is now done. So the next thing that we have to do is we are going to be taking the inside material and putting that down over it. So either tape it, spray it, or however you want to put it in place. And then we're going to take it back to the machine, and it is going to run the placement hole for the flap. And then once the placement hole is done, then we take the other piece of material, again, put it right sides together over top, and then you run the tack down to hold them together. there we have these two pieces done, and the whole back portion of this one is open on the flat piece to turn it. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the little side tab, that little piece right there. The thing that I like to use for it is vinyl. You don't have to do that. It's just something extra that I like to add to the bag to put a D-ring on it. So you make it just like a normal snap tab. You put the vinyl piece on the front with the right side facing up, and then you put the vinyl piece on the back with the right side facing up. And then we just need to take that back to the machine, and it's going to run the stitch, the bean stitch around it, and it's going to run the 2 holes. There we have all the pieces done for the flap and the inside pocket, and then we have the tab done. That again is optional. So the next thing that we have to do is we need to cut these out. Now you need to remember that there is a turning hole here, right? And so you need to leave that flap of material, so don't cut that out. And I usually like to leave about a 1/4 inch seam around, and then you need to notch the rounded parts, okay? And then this one back here, over here, you need to, for the flap, cut across from the one side stitching to the other side of the stitching, and then you turn it through this piece here. Now that we have those turned around, you just, for this one, I just want to show you, it is a little hard to see because it's white on white, but there is a little snap placement one there. And so you just have to iron them to keep them flat. And this one, you need to close up the hole, so you just tuck in the extra flap on both sides. And then you need to either stitch it shut. You could stitch all the way around if you want to on a regular machine, or you could just stitch this shut, or you can use something that I use, which is called steam-a-seam, or a fusible type of a tape that goes on the side. And there we have the pieces all done. So I use this side as the inside of the inside pocket. So when it's closed, it will kind of flap over like this. But it is up to you if you want to use that on the outside. It's just, you'll see these 2 rows at the top. So I do it this way, all right? And this line here helps attach it to the next hoop. And if you wanted to, it is an option. You do not need to close the back here. However, if you like stitching a top stitch, you could stitch a top stitch around there. So now we are going to move on to the main bag body piece. Here we have hoop number 3, and it's called hoop number 3 because the other 2 are hoop 1 and hoop 2. And this one is the main body part of the pouch. What I want you to know is that this line here in the back indicates that this is the back of the pouch area where the flap is going to go across, okay? And so this is what would be the front closest to you. And you will not see this on the other stitches, but just remember, if you have a directional fabric and you want to make sure of the way that it's facing, this is the back, okay? So the first thing that we have to do for this hoop is the batting if you are going to be using that. Now I don't suggest using the batting in the 6x10 because that makes it really quite thick and it's hard to turn and it doesn't fit the cards as nicely, right? So I think that the batting is best for the 8x10 and the 9x14. That is just my opinion. All right, so here we put the batting on, then we take it back to the machine, we run the batting tack down, and then you cut off the excess batting around the outside of the tack down. There we have the batting. It is now done. And the next thing that we have to do is we're actually going to be doing part of the inside of the pouch. So that's going to be showing the fold lines and where the other pocket piece will meet up with the rivets. So we take the piece that's going to be the inside of the pouch, and where is that line? So this line up here, just remember this is the back. So if you have a fabric that you want to be in the pouch, this is the back of the pouch and this is the front of the pouch. So it'll sit like this when it's done. So just if you have a directional fabric, be wary of that. And so then you just put this one on, and now we're going to take it back to the machine and it is going to run the pocket placement stitches. It is also going to run the rivet holes, and we are going to be doing the flap after that. All right, so let's go ahead and get that done. Now that these lines are all done, I'll just give you a little bit quick peek there. The rivet holes, yes, are hard to see in this material, but I just highlighted them in red so you can see them. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to add the flap. So the stitching line that goes at the back, so you can see that this one has a stitch line across it and the one at the front does not. So what we need to do is the one at the back as well. I know it is hard to see, but there is a tiny little notch in the back there. It's just one tiny little notch. That is showing you the center of where that is. So you need to find the center. There we go. So just find the center of your flap where that will be. And you need to take it, and right here we have a line, and this line is 1/2 of an inch over, and there is lots of space on the flap on this pouch. It goes down far. So you do need to make sure that you have enough back in the seam allowance so that is going to get caught on the tack down. So don't skimp on this, there's lots of space. So what you need to do is you need to line up this line here, so that'd be the 1/2 inch line with the back line that is already there, centering your little notch with the little thing there. Okay, and then you tape it down and you go and run the tack down to hold this in place. There we have the flap tack down has been completed. As you can see, it's attached, and we are going to be adding the inside pocket piece now. So you need to make sure this piece is kind of just up out of the way. Okay, so now we get the pocket piece. Now this line here, I'll just turn this. So you can see the flap is at the top, and then this rounded flap portion needs to be at the top part too. These go the same way. And this center line that is on here is going to match with the center line that is on here. So the easiest way that I do that is I just take some pins and I put them in the corner of this one and of here, and then I just match them up to this one. Okay, and once you have done that, you just tape it down. and you take it back to the machine and it's going to run the tack down to keep that in place. There we have the inside flap is now attached. Okay, so you can see that the center line does go over the other center line as long as you have them matched up. And now is the time to add the back piece of material, which is the outside front. So what we need to do is we need to fold these on up. So I just stuffed this one in here, and something I should have mentioned is this flat piece should not go past this line. So it'll lay flat nicely in here if you do that. And also something I should have mentioned is that this inside flat piece, that's optional. You don't actually have to do that. If you would prefer just to add the rivets to hold it in place, you can totally do that. However, there is this option. So what we need to do is fold this up out of the way. And when you do that, use a piece of tape, but make sure the tape is easily accessible, because you need to remove the tape before trying to turn it, because this amount of fabric with the inside pouch and the flap does create quite a bit of bulk while trying to pull it out of the turning hole. Okay, so that is out of the way, and the next thing that we have to do is we need to put the material on. So if you have a fabric that is directional, this is your front, this is your back. So you have to remember that when the pouch is turned, it will be facing this way. So whatever you want to be facing up, this is the side that has to go over here. Okay, so you take your piece and you put it right sides together, so right side face down, and either tape it or pin it in place. And then we take it back to the machine and it's going to run a big C basically and leave a turning hole, and we will go do that. It holds it all together. There we have it, folks. The pouch is now done. So the next thing that you have to do is just take it out of the hoop for now. And remember that there is a turning hole over here. So you want to leave your flap of material, right? Don't cut that off. And take off any tape, so it's going to be easier to turn. Because if you try and turn it with the tape in there, it's a little awkward. All right, so there you go. It is a little tricky to turn, but it will come out. And now that you have it all turned, you need to give it a good press and iron it in place. Now that we have that all ironed, another thing that you could actually do is you could top stitch around here if you felt like it, and that would close the hole opening as well. I just use that seam stuff to close it up. Now, something I suggest before going to put the rivets in is to iron these pieces into place. It's just a lot easier to do it now before putting the rivets in. So what you need to do is along these stitching lines, you fold in, and you'll press that. And you do the same thing with this line. It'll go like that with this one. And then you do the same thing on the other side. And this one here will also get ironed so that this is flat. Sorry you guys, I didn't notice my camera slipping. So what I did, not sure what I got, but I took all of these lines and I folded them in. So this one I ironed there, there, and there. And then the center part of it that does not have stitches gets folded in. Okay? And that is how you create the accordion fold. Okay, so now that we have the accordion part done, we are going to take it over to my cutting and riveting table, and we will add the rivets and the snaps. Here we are at my table. Now the first thing that I like to do is I like to punch out the holes. So if you remember, along these lines we have rivet holes that we need to punch out. As well, we have the snap hole here and the snap hole here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this is called a Japanese drill press, or just a drill press, or a screw punch, and you can buy those online. There we have all the holes punched out. Okay, and for this particular pattern, you're going to need to mark the placement yourself for the rivet. So what we have to do is, on this pattern, so you can see the flap is up here, and the first line matches up with the outside of the pocket on this side. So you see that each side of this pocket will match up. So this one will match here, this one will match here. So they match up to the side that they are on. And then the back line, you've got two lines, and this back line matches up to the ones on this side. So this one will go here, this one will go here. So the first thing that we have to do is take this part of the pocket, go in the first folded area where the stitching is, line it up in there so you can see the stitching, I think. So you line your pocket piece up there and you put it around to the top, okay? And then you kind of pinch it so you got a little sandwich, and with that hole that's there, just mark where your rivet needs to go, okay? And punch that hole. So you're going to need to do that for the other side. So for the back one, you do it with the back hole. You take that and you match this line up with the top. Again, keep it straight in there. Fold it over. You get your little sandwich. And mark. Okay? So we have the one side done there. I did put in the rivet to hold it. I have not pressed them yet. So you do the same thing to the other side. Now, before you add a rivet to one of the sides, if you were adding a D-ring, just make sure that you have it with you. Otherwise, you will likely forget, because that's what keeps happening to me. So now we have that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press the rivets and the little D-ring. Now that we have those rivets put into place, we need to add the snaps for the pocket. So depending on whether you have used batting or thicker material, it really is going to make a difference where your hole is. So I suggest doing this at this time. Once you make the holes up in the top, then you can fold it over and see where it falls and then mark that. And voila, there we have it. This side. There you go. So I hope you like it. I hope you'll give it a try. It is not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of time to put the rivets in. So thank you very much for watching. If you haven't, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't, also subscribe. Thank you and have a wonderful day.